Today on The Report, we will be discussing a shooting in South Carolina.
President Trump calls for the arrest of the mayor of Chicago.
Severe flooding hits homes in Alaska.
And Coco Gauff winning the Wuhan Open.
Welcome back to another episode of The Report. I'm Chrissy Washington.
I'm Matthew Wyantz.
I'm Joseph Fausto.
And I'm Sirhan Albuquerque. Stay in the loop and get updated on campus news by following us on Titan TV's Instagram page at Titan TV CSUF.
This past Sunday, a shooting took place at a bar on St. Helena Island in South Carolina that left 4 people dead and 20 injured. According to the sheriff's office, there were hundreds of people at the location when the shooting occurred. The sheriff's office said that, quote, upon arriving at the scene, deputies made contact with a large crowd of people, several of whom were suffering from gunshot wounds, end quote. During the shooting, victims and witnesses ran to local businesses and homes to seek shelter. At the scene, 4 people were immediately pronounced dead. Several were taken to the hospital, with 4 being in critical condition. As of right now, the victims' names have not been released, but additional information may be released pending notification of next of kin. So guys, this is a super tragic situation that happened, another mass shooting in our country. Just some history about St. Helena Island. It is a historically Black community. It's part of the Gullah community on the East Coast, southeast of Los Angeles of the United States. And I just think it's just really tragic. We don't know who the suspect is. We don't know how the situation unfolded. What do you guys think about how this investigation is going to go?
Yeah, I think, well, with the investigation, I definitely feel like it's going to take a long time for information to even come out. But I just kind of going off from that a little bit, I think that the reason why our country suffers from so many shootings is not only do we have no kind of like gun control, anything like that, we also have really big mental health problems in this country that we never address. And I mean, when you look at these shooters, you look at these, like just these mass shooters, they always have such bad mental health problems that isn't being addressed. And I feel like cut so much funding from things like that. I feel like we just need to really address that problem flat out. I don't know how you guys, if you agree with that or not, but.
No, definitely. Did you have any other ideas on what we could do to address those issues, to stop situations like these from happening in the future?
Well, I feel like we also should be a little bit stricter on purchasing guns. I feel like it's so easy in certain states especially to just purchase a gun. There's no kind of background check, no kind of mental wellness check. Anybody can buy a gun above the age of 18, above the age of 21. And I feel like we have so much gun violence compared to other countries because it's just so easy to purchase a gun. And we have no mental health checks, and we don't take care of our mentally ill.
I feel like you hit it right on, you hit the nail right there. Like you said everything perfectly. Yeah, you said everything perfectly. But just to kind of reiterate and agree with you, I believe that the lack of gun regulation in this country, as well as the major mental health challenges that many people, especially young people, face in this country, given the political climate and a lot of these issues have been ongoing, of course, but it continues to be very prevalent, especially in today's world, in today's political climate with our current administration. And to your point, it does concern me, given that I believe you mentioned, it's predominantly a black community.
Yeah.
So there's people of color, and as we have seen that often marginalized communities tend to face less representation in the media, or there often seems to be less of a concern, I guess you could say, for these communities. And given that there was hundreds of people at this location, 4 people died, 20 people were injured, and so it does concern me because I just hope that the appropriate actions and the investigation is treated as it should be, and that this is handled with urgency and diligence.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And to that point, this event, it was a high school reunion, so that's why there were so many people there. So it's just super tragic for that to happen, you know, where people are celebrating and enjoying themselves and seeing old friends and just having a great time. So I think that that's really tragic, and I think that the governor of South Carolina, I think her response was very much thoughts and prayers. And I think that in this time, this current climate, we just need to do more, like you said, and have more action being taken.
For sure.
And it's just so sad that in our country, it's such a normal event at this point. If you had this happen in any other country, it would be huge. It would be a big deal. It would be like a national day of remembrance. It's like every other day in this country. We're having a shooting here, shooting there, at this school. I mean, our schools aren't safe. Now our bars aren't. Like, nowhere is safe in our country. And it's, like I said earlier, which I apologize for starting a little bit rough there, I was a little bit nervous, but we have such a big mental health problem. We have no kind of gun reform. And I'm not talking about getting rid of guns fully, because we do have a Second Amendment right, but I just think that there needs to be some kind of, some kind of better background checks with people, or if you own a gun, maybe like getting checked up every few years to make sure that this person isn't insane, and also just educating people on where to put your guns. A lot of shootings in the past, school shootings, these kids go and get their parents' guns and take it to school because they know where their parents' guns are. They're not secure, they're not locked up. And yeah, I just think that those are like such big problems in our country, and it's just really sad how normalized this is in our, right? When you wake up and you see that there's a shooting, are you really shocked? It's sad, but it's just, we're so used to it that we're not even like shocked about it anymore.
And to add on to that, I do agree. It kind of feels like it's being normalized in our society. It's to the point where when we do read the news, we're like, oh, it's just another day, another day. And to a point, it almost seems like they're normalizing it just to keep guns like easily accessible, or accessible enough to continue this trend.
It's just sad. And I will say though, I used to wonder about this. I used to kind of be like, should we ban guns fully? Should we not? Because it is our American right, and I get a little scared, like, what do we do if the government somehow, takes over? What are we gonna do? Because you have these countries where they don't have weapons, they can't fight back against their government. But at the same time, like, you look at these countries like Australia and England, and they have a lot less, when they ban guns, or at least have some kind of reform, they have less gun violence. So, yeah.
I think our country is just a little different compared to all these other ones.
True, that is true.
In terms of wanting access to the Second Amendment, to keep our homes safe, protect one another, our own families.
Right,
but
yeah, I agree with that.
It gets to a point.
Just some kind of background check, you know what I mean? Something like that. So, yes. The Trump administration continues to send National Guard members to local immigration facilities. Over the last several months, we have seen the administration send troops to Los Angeles, Portland, and now the administration is trying their luck in Chicago. Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson filed a lawsuit to block the motion to send the guards. Pritzker criticized these forces, calling it, quote, Trump's invasion, end quote, stating that it starts with calling in federal agents and likely leads to deploying the Illinois National Guard against their will. Trump posted on X, quote, Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also, end quote. Mayor Johnson also made a post stating that, quote, this is not the first time Trump has tried to have a black man unjustly arrested. I'm not going anywhere, end quote. Okay. Here is another scenario of Trump overstepping his power and acting extremely inappropriately. Whether you like him or not, agree with his policies or not, you have to like, do you guys feel like that he's definitely overstepping his power here? I just want to start with that. We can all agree on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. I just think that the trend that he started since 2016 of coming at politicians, calling them nasty, calling them terrible, talking about jailing them, is that really the society we want to have? And I come from a family of a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of more conservative people, and I believe that our country, you have a right to vote for whoever you want to vote for, and have whatever beliefs you want to have. But if you think that it's okay for him to talk to anybody like that, for the past few years, calling people nasty, like talking about jailing the mayor. If you think that that's okay, don't you think that the other party is going to start doing the same thing? Because you started that trend. You started this trend of just attacking your opponent constantly during campaigns, when you're not on the campaigns, talking about how horrible they were. You talked about Joe Biden. Not to talk about Joe Biden right now because it's a little bit off topic, but he definitely wasn't fully there cognitively, but constantly talking about him even after he was president, just over and over and over again. I think it's just not a trend we want to set in our politics.
It honestly feels like we're going on a downward spiral right now. Because if the other party did start doing that, what's next for our country? And for Trump, right now, it almost seems like a child throwing a tantrum. And
All the time.
all the time. So when he does all these actions, threatening the mayor, threatening whoever other politicians, and going straight to militarization, do you think that might be a trend going forward? And if so, what else could he possibly do to threaten the people?
There's no telling what he's gonna do. Did you guys see he's building an arch for himself in D.C.? Listen, I'm all for building new monuments because I love that idea. That's awesome. But why isn't it being called like the Arch of Freedom or Arch of America? You're building your. Have we ever had a leader who built themselves a monument while they were still in power or alive?
Only dictators.
Like, only dictator. That's what I'm saying. And whether you like him or not, I get that there's a lot of people who like him. I understand that. I think that his first term was definitely, I don't know if you guys feel this way, a lot different than his second term. But the fact that you're building yourself a monument, you're coming after these mayors, these governors, you're taking advantage of your power, it's really disheartening to see that. And whether you like him or not, because I don't want this trend to continue. I don't want politicians coming at each other constantly, insulting each other. We need to have peaceful debates where we're talking about what we like about one another. I don't know if you guys have ever seen old videos of presidential debates, but they would talk about what they enjoyed about each other, what they liked about each other. It was so much more peaceful. I want to bring that back into politics, right? Let's bring that back.
I agree we should bring that back. However, with the way our media is going and the way our younger generation is kind of turning out, I feel like it's been more of a trend to appeal to those masses by acting out, saying colorful things to get more reactions, to spread awareness. Oh, this is what I'm saying. Oh, did you hear about this? To kind of get their name thrown out there. No press is bad press, except in this case.
I think adding on to that, I think what we have seen more recently, especially with younger generation, our generation, Generation Z, is that people aren't afraid to call out politicians and aren't afraid to hold people accountable. And with that being said, to your point, I think there needs to be a little bit more of peacefulness, but I also think that there is power in a sense of having a little bit of aggression, but in a way that sparks meaningful change, in the sense that by having a little bit more of a powerful tone, essentially just calling out more, or I think I'm gonna frame this as like a call in, not a call out, just because these are our politicians, these are the people in power. A lot of these people, obviously we have the power of the people, you know, and it's important that everyone votes for what they believe in.
Right.
But that being said, a lot of these politicians and our people in power, they are in power, they have a sense of power, and because of that, it's important to be able to have that call in, because these things affect everyone, especially in more so marginalized communities, people of color, things like that. And so again, I just think there just needs to be more change and a little bit more aggression, and yes, more friendly, but also in the sense that, like, not just, of course, being more cordial with one another, but recognizing that at the end of the day, we're all one country, and we all need to do what's in the benefit of everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, and I actually researched about the Chicago mayor a little bit because I was hoping to be like, you know what, maybe this mayor is terrible, maybe he might be a little bit right with this, but there's actually been a decrease in homicides and a couple of other specific crimes as well. I found that very, very interesting, and I also wanted to quickly talk with you guys about immigration because it was talking about immigration facilities. And something I think that's such a big problem in our country, that it is so difficult to become a citizen. If you research some other countries, how easy it is I think in Australia, you have to live there for a few years and then be just an outstanding citizen and that's it. I'm like, that's crazy. There's people who are waiting 20 years to get through all this paperwork, take these tests and get citizenship. Like people who had applied back in the 90s for citizenship are still waiting for that. And I think that's honestly ridiculous. Honestly.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm really glad that you brought up immigration, Matthew. I kind of want to spin this sort of into a different perspective. I was researching something incredibly interesting about this. Joseph, you mentioned marginalized communities, and as we all know, these raids in Chicago were primarily attacking Black and brown apartments and communities in Chicago. And I recently found that the Department of Homeland Security and ICE are alleging that Mexican cartels are putting bounties on ICE agents. Yeah, so that's basically, so this is coming out from the DHS, and I did some more research, and Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, has basically refuted it. And I think that we're heading into just a very slippery slope of targeting people based on their skin color, attacking them for basically nothing, and then asking them for proof of citizenship, and then not giving them due process when they do eventually get to processing. And I think that things are just going really bad right now. And we saw it in LA, we're seeing it in Portland, we're seeing it in Chicago. And yeah, I think that a lot is happening, and it just really shouldn't.
Yeah, and these facilities are scary too. I mean, have you guys seen images of these facilities? I mean, some of it's just inhumane.
Alcatraz.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, it's similar to, I don't want to say as bad as concentration camps, but they are being starved. They are being somewhat psychologically tortured, and just having a negative living environment to a point where they say, just take us wherever you want to take us. We don't want to be here anymore. And going back to what you said, also, they're attacking all the politicians who are trying to speak out for us. So I know we can all agree we have freedom of speech, but it's getting to a point where do we have freedom after speech?
One person is dead and 2 others are still missing after the remnants of Typhoon Helene slammed western Alaska, where hurricane-force winds and floodwaters swept away homes in coastal villages over the weekend. More than 50 people were rescued, some from rooftops, as residents took shelter in local schools. Many communities remain without power or clean water. Officials warn recovery will be tough with winter approaching. State leaders say climate change is bringing stronger and more frequent storms to Alaska's coast. So this is obviously a very tragic situation. I'm curious, how long do you all think it's going to take our world, I guess, to take action on how serious climate change is, especially since we continue to, we have seen the trend of continuous major climate issues in our world with just various things. And so I'm just curious, what is everyone's thoughts on these things?
I personally don't know if we're ever fully going to take action on it. I think money a lot of times motivates people to take action instead of what's really going on with the world. And I will say there's always going to be catastrophes. And so I think a lot of people have that mindset. If there's always going to be catastrophes, you know, we don't really have to do with this. I know countries in Europe are really trying to change what's going on with climate change. And you also kind of have to, like, I don't know, part of me is like, what would we do? You know what I mean? Build more wind turbines, like drive more electric cars. But electric cars are actually just as bad for the environment as gas cars. The batteries that power these electric cars are actually really horrible for the planet as well. I think they're made in like mines in other countries, I think Africa, like where these people are working under inhumane conditions anyways. And so I think it's such a difficult, like, what do we do? It's like, where do we start? You know what I mean? It's so difficult.
And so go on to that, we keep thinking as a society, as people, as individuals, where do we go? Do we buy the electric cars? Do we go and help set up wind turbines? But we're not really thinking about the bigger corporations, the ones that are really contributing to this. I believe I read it was almost 40% to 50% of all the major corporations are heavily contributing to the climate change and the negative CO2 emissions into the air and atmosphere.
Yeah, it's just, it's never going to change in my opinion, and for a while, especially when you have countries like India, China, Russia, who just have such large populace and just do not care about the environment. Like the air quality it's like unbreathable in places like China and India. It's insane, you know what I mean? And so it's like, we can do something about it, but what is, you know, I don't want to be negative, like what is it going to do? Because it will, it should help, but you really have to get countries like that to get on board with it, or nothing's really going to change on the whole planet.
I think to add on to that, you brought up a really good point about how, you know, you can buy the electric cars and things like that. But again, it goes back to holding these people in power, holding politicians, holding people in technology and things like that, holding these people with the money, with the power, accountable, holding these corporations, excuse me, that's the word I was looking for, holding these corporations accountable, because I feel, or I recognize that in the media, it's often framed towards the consumers' perspective and how it's often our fault and that we have to be doing our part, which is partially true. Of course, we can play our part in using less water, using less power. We can all play our part, and of course, those little things can add up over time. And I do believe that change can occur. I think as a society, we should try to strive for hope and believing in that change, because change has happened and change can occur. And there's so much evidence to prove that many countries, like you mentioned, many people are taking change towards fighting back against climate change. However, that being said, we have to recognize that we can do our part, but our power mostly resides in trying to hold these people who can actually make the big changes, who can write the legislation, who has the funds, who has the money to quite literally implement that change. And so, yeah, and it's also important to recognize that, like, for this this disaster, there's 20 people that were unaccounted for, and so that's 20 lives. And you think of major disasters like Hurricane Katrina or other geographical disasters and things like that, where thousands of people or hundreds of people, people died, people were injured, people that were never found. And so these are people's lives at stake, and this is our world at stake. And so we just have to do what we can to hold our people in power accountable. Kind of going back to what I was saying earlier with the other stories. A lot of that
100%.
comes from that.
I totally agree with all of you guys. I do think that, again, we do individually have a role in, fighting climate change, but it is the corporations, it is the politicians. I'm glad you mentioned the government and legislation and Hurricane Katrina specifically. We've had so many issues with FEMA specifically in this country, providing aid to flood victims, tornado victims, even California. Oh my God, when we had the fires, Trump flat out said he wouldn't give us money. And I think that we're in this situation again, and Alaska is a part of the United States, but this did hit a huge indigenous population, a very small community. It was 25,000 people, but 85% of those people are indigenous. And I think that we're just seeing another situation of the government kind of lacking. I don't know what the reaction time is going to be like. I don't know how long it's going to take to get them help. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I just wanted to, how you were talking about holding the government accountable. I did want to also say that a lot of the funding we have towards climate change just goes missing. It leaves. So we talk about taking action on this, and a lot of politicians are like, well, okay, we'll rise the taxes a little bit to kind of help with, climate change or these certain causes. But a lot of the money just disappears, and you take all this money and you don't use it for what you should be using it for. And so it's really hard to deal with this, because you really have to know that whoever's dealing with the money is doing it justly. And even these climate change organizations are actually using the money for what they say they're using it for. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these organizations aren't doing that. And so it's just such a slippery slope when it comes to this. And yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you kind of agree with me on this, or? Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like the prevailing mindset is like, oh, I'm just one person, what can I do? And I feel like that's really heavy in a lot of the denser populations like India or China. Oh, we're just one person, what can we do? But each of those people add up to that very large population where they all go, there's nothing we can do. It's all up to the bigger person. It's all up to the government. It's all up to these climate change groups. But I feel that there is something we could all do to aid in that.
Yeah, it's true. Small steps, small actions, right, can make a difference. I love that. That's awesome.
This past Sunday, Coco Gauff beat Jessica Pegula in 4 straight sets to win the Wuhan Open 6-4 and 7-5 in All-American final, joining Venus Williams as one of the only American women to win the Wuhan title. Gauff was down 5-3 in the second set and served to save her chance on coming back. She held her own ground and broke Pegula to love for 5-5. Gauff was at match point for the first time after Pegula's hit went wide. Gauff later finished off with the win. Pegula had beat top-ranked Aryna Sabalenka in the semifinals, but she could not hold onto her momentum when facing against Gauff, failing to win her 10th career title. This is the second title of the year for Gauff in her young career, having won the French Open on clay and now having 11 career titles to her name. Gauff expressed her win saying, quote, "Winning every match in the tournament in straight sets, I don't know if I've ever done that before on a title run. I just felt like I was really proud of what I accomplished this week, regardless of the result today, end quote. So for all of you tennis fans out there, do you feel that Coco Gauff has a chance of passing Venus Williams?
Great question.
That's a good question.
Does anybody know about tennis?
I was going to say, I'm personally not a, well, it's not that I'm not a fan, I'm just not well-versed in sports, especially with tennis. But I think, like you mentioned, Coco Gauff, just 21 years old, winning her second title of the year with 11 career titles. That's
wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That is amazing. 21. Wow.
So I guess you can argue that she's on her way to, and I mean already having a very successful career, of course, but on her way to, I guess, possibly reaching that milestone. If you don't mind, you said, was it surpassing Serena Williams?
Venus Williams.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Venus Williams, yeah. I think she's well on her way, but time will tell.
There you go. True.
I like that you said time will tell. I am also, unfortunately, not very into tennis. I love Coco Gauff and I love Venus and Serena. They're from Compton. My dad is from Compton, so I followed them for a little bit. And I'm not very much into tennis, but I think the interesting thing about these sort of single-player sports is that you really have no idea, and this is true about athletes on teams as well, but anything can happen. You never know, what can happen between matches or between games. And I think it's just really interesting to watch her in her career and see the amazing things that she accomplishes and just kind of, I'm sure that she'll do amazing, and I think that she will surpass Venus at some point. I'm just really interested to see if it's soon.
Is there any thoughts that you all might have for a young prodigy coming into this game, going against big names such as Venus and Serena? Is there any thoughts you would have when they play against them?
Just don't be nervous. You got this, girl. Don't be nervous. Because I know nothing about tennis, I'm not going to lie to you guys. But you got this. I used to do swimming, so that's kind of like an individual sport. You're in it to win it. So be in it to win it, girl. You got this. That's all I got to say about that. So I don't know. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think that something that's cool about Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka is that they're so young, and they remind me a lot of Venus and Serena. They're just not related, but they're just so amazing at tennis, and it's so cool to see just this next generation of Black female players just excelling at tennis. So I think that the comparisons are great, and all of that is great, but I think that it's really cool to see how they shine on their own.
Yeah, seriously,
I'm
that's awesome.
definitely going to tune into the next match because,
No,
going through all the stories and seeing all the histories and track records for Coco, it kind of feels like when Michael Phelps was in the Olympics, like history is being made right now, and we're front row center.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that wraps up with our recent news of today.
Make sure to stay tuned for more news, views, and info.
Don't forget to follow at Titan TV CSUF on Instagram to stay updated with our weekly episodes.
We'll see you next time on the episode of The Report.